All right, so now we're going to go ahead and get started. A couple of things. We've got our nice black pad here, felted pad. The pads that you guys received are about half the size of this. I'm using something a little bit bigger so that we can look at the entire project all at once against something sort of dark. You're going to need a couple straight pins, which you should have received in your kit, and then also too this handy dandy crochet hook, which is a number 7 1.65 millimeter crochet hook. I've got my material here, which has been doubled over and evened up, and I want to stress that at this point you're going to pinch this in half. So your entire length will be pinched in half. You're going to take a couple of your pins here, put them into the pad. This is going to be sort of like our little anchoring bit, and we're going to loop this over, just like that. Now, it's super important, whether you've had a class from me before or not, that when we commence with weaving the 0.35 pewter thread here, that it is important that your thread stays parallel to the next thread near it. So think of it in terms of like two legs. We're going to keep these guys side by side. We don't want any rolling or twisting, otherwise it's going to mess up our braid. So I'm going to go ahead and start by doing the Josephine braid, and I'm just going to very loosely make this nice sort of like little loop-de-loo here. You'll remember this from your practice sheets, just like this. And as you can see, I need to make sure that all of my threads are parallel to each other. All right. Now, I've got my nice loop-de-loo. I'm going to kind of keep this a little bit loose. I'm going to take my running thread here and go ahead and commence to weave with this. And again, you can see just by the virtue of handling this that you can basically twist it. So again, we want to keep all of these threads parallel to each other. All right, so I've threaded my crochet hook, kind of clearing a path for my traveling piece here. So now I'm just going to go ahead and do my weaving. So that's going to go under. This is going to go over and under here, just like that. And I kind of use the crochet hook just to kind of get everything lined up. Now, as you're pulling this, don't start pulling this tight really fast, because again, you've got to check your threads and make sure that everything is parallel. All right, now I can start pulling my threads. And you can kind of see the Josephine starting to form here. But now before I start pulling everything, I'm actually going to turn the board towards me. And the trick to getting nice knots that are compact, and again, we don't want to like have a big long swoop hanging out here, is to take these two intersecting parts here and actually start pulling those closer and closer to the pins. And as you do that, lightly start pulling your outer bows here. See? And again, I don't want to waste any material, so I'm going to just keep pulling this a little bit closer, pulling lightly, lightly. I'm feeding it up towards the pins, pulling a little lightly here, a little lightly here, pulling, pulling, till I have a loop about like that. Now, once I have that loop kind of close to the pins, I'm going to start pulling these outer loops very slowly, very, very slowly, just like that, keeping everything nice and parallel. Same thing here, pulling, pulling, just like that. And maybe I'm going to do this just a teeny bit tighter. And now I can start pulling this a little tighter. Just like that. Again, keep these guys side by side. Start pulling. And then you can give it a nice tug. Just like that. Now that's our first one. And that's going to be the hardest one of all. The beginning and ending of everything, as they always say, is the hardest. So now in order to do my next one, I'm going to turn my pad sideways. Again, take my top strand, do my loop, just like this. And again, I'm smoothing this all out so that everything is parallel. Just like this. And you may not need to use this tool, I don't know. But it helps me. And I'm going to take my bottom thread here. Just like this. And again, I'm going to check myself so that my threads are side by side. Just like that. And take my ends. These up. Just like that. And sometimes I'll even use the hook to push this in. Oops. And bring it back through and start pulling. Now this outer edge here, it's out of whack. Again, get your stuff all realigned before you start doing any serious tugging so that they're side by side. And you can see your next Josephine. Now, I understand that this is a lot of material to handle, but once you get 3 or 4 knots down, there won't be as much material to wrangle. So the first part of this is just trying to figure out how to get your heat down here. And again, I'm just going to very lightly start pulling this, pulling, trying to keep everything even. And again, the trick to getting a nice tight knot is to take these 2 pieces here, these 2 intersections, and actually get those nice and snug before you start pulling. And I just put my finger right on top, just like that. Very slowly. This outer ring, I can just like grab whatever that corresponding thread is to even that up, just like that. Again, if I want these knots to be kind of close together, I will, again, pull these 2 innermost sections. And you don't want to do that final pull until you have everything situated exactly the way you like it. And now I can pull these guys kind of tight. Now with this diameter of thread, this is about as close as you can make those knots. You don't want to start pulling this very hard because you can overexert the material so that the wire will start to come undone from the cotton core. All right, let's do another one. Turn your pad, get your traveling piece nice and smoothed out. Make your loop, straighten your threads out. Get your initial loop going here, just like this. And again, if this helps you, great. If it doesn't, you don't need to use it. But I use it to kind of hold my path in place. Take my traveling piece, bring this around. And again, trying really hard to keep everything nice and even. And here's a little trick. You can either work with the ends of your thread and thread them through. Or I like to use the crochet hook to like literally drag this underneath my first section, pick it up, and even drag it here. And then I'll pull my loose end through. Sometimes that can be helpful, sometimes it is not. It depends upon your dexterity. Historically, there are no records of any tools used to actually make this type of braid or knotting. And the only thing I can deduce is that maybe they were wooden tools. So you might find a toothpick will help you. You might find a wooden crochet hook might help you better than the steel crochet hook. But this is just one way of doing it, not the only way. I'm a little hesitant to think that it was not done with tools, but because there's very fine work from graves in Sweden, the Birka graves, that are just incredible, that defy not having used a tool. But I could be wrong. All right, so now I'm pulling this. And again, pull these two sections if you want to get a really close knot. Want your spacing to be very even throughout this. All right. Again, pull one side and then the other, and then give it a final tuck. All right, and you can just keep going till you run out of material. Like I said, after 3 or 4 knots, this will not be as much stuff to wrangle. But the main thing is take your time and make sure that you don't have any twists and no overlapping of the 2 threads. They need to be side by side. And you'll notice it pretty quickly if you make that mistake. But you can also very gently go back and unweave this if you need to correct a mistake. You don't want to overexert the material, but it can take a little bit of handling.